Well, it's another chilly day here. It's about 1 or 2 degrees, I guess. There was lots of ice on the car this morning, so had to take it easy on the road getting down here. Well, let's just go on board and have a look at what we're up to now. Okay, I'll just do a bit of a voiceover here to explain what's happening in the background. As I'm doing this, it's generally too noisy and there's too much dust to be able to speak and record on the video what I'm doing, so I've actually put this in as a voiceover afterwards. But what I'm doing here is removing as much of the flow coat as possible, and that flow coat needs to come off so that you can create a good clean surface to bond the new fiberglass sheeting or layers onto. So for this task I'm using a flap disc for the grinding disc, and it's a 40 grit, which is fairly aggressive, and for this part of the process I'm trying to get as much of the flat of the disc as possible, to get as much surface area contact to take off as much of the flow coat as I can in bulk. So really using the flat of the disc here and just working away to remove all that flow coat. This is probably the most or the more time consuming part of the process. And then, as you can see here, the second activity for the grinding is to actually remove the old tabbing where it's delaminated or where it just needs to be removed to make a completely flat area to lay up with new matting. So for this type of activity I'm using the edge of the grinding disc to sort of cut through a bit more rapidly the fiberglass layers. And here you can see the delaminated part is just sort of flying off, and you can see chunks of debris coming away there as it's being detached from the shell. So it's the same disc, it's a 40 grit flap disc, but just using the edge or the edge of the disc here to get a little bit more bite into the grinding. So here it's really easy because the tabbing is delaminated, so you can see where you're going and what needs to be done. Where the tabbing's not delaminated, it's a little bit tougher to sort of gauge your progress. Well, here we are after day 5 of grinding. Anthony came in yesterday and we both spent about 5 hours working on this together, so with that sort of 10-hour day we really got a lot more done here, and I was going quite slowly. Obviously Anthony does this all the time, so he was a lot more efficient and fast than I was, so that's good. We really made a dent to this and it's just about ready now to be fiberglass back. So it was interesting. We were looking at this frame here, which I'd left behind. I hadn't cut this one out because it looks solid. But what Anthony picked up on is the fiberglass matting style used here is completely different to the fiberglass matting style used everywhere else. So that indicates that this is actually a repair. This has been put back by somebody else. And what we saw on the other side of the hull looking back is all around this area there's a lot of filler. So there's obviously some sort of repair job here or issue. So considering that, I think I'll take this off now. I'll cut this out just so that we can have a look underneath it and see if there's anything nasty which might have been patched up in some way. So I'll get onto that next. And you can see here we've ground back that tabbing, so the bulkhead is all, the tabbing's ground back to bare wood there, so all of that needs to be relayed. That's where there was a split along that part there. The bottom part is still sound. And the same with the main bulkhead here. All of this tabbing here has been removed with a grinder, ready to be retabbed because there was a large split along there. We've left this web here for some stability to prevent the deck from dropping down. We need to remove this last, but before we do that we'll probably prop up the deck with some sort of joist or strut. So yeah, a lot of work has gone into this. Hours and hours and hours of grinding, but as you can see now it's all, you know, relatively clean, and what we'll do next is we'll lay sheets all along this area, and then we will relay the foam frames running vertically. And once this entire shell has been built up with thickness from the inside, then we can go back to the outside and start grinding in from the outside to get rid of those stress cracks. Because at the moment the cracks are so deep that the fiberglass is too thin, and so we'd actually end up coming through on this side. So add a few more millimeters of layers here, provide a bit more thickness, and then we can start grinding in from the other side. So over the last 5 days I've actually filled up probably 1.5 of these large black bags with the dust that comes off from the flow coat and fiberglass. So you just get this white powder. It's actually quite heavy. And so every day just been grinding for a couple of hours, then come in with the vacuum and vacuum it up or scoop it up, put it into one of those bags, step back, have a look, and then highlight the bits that I've missed. Like you can see up there, we've got some markings where we need to come back and do another piece there, and there, and there. So that's been the process for the last 5 days. Not a lot of fun, but it's been a good learning experience. Okay, so next steps, finish this off and then start preparing it for laying down new glass. Well, just to show you an example of when I was mentioning earlier on that we need to build up the layers of laminate on the inside so that we can then add thickness, which will allow us to then start working from the outside. So you can see here where the light is shining through. This is the light that's on the inside of the cabin. Where the impact is, and we've ground that away, you can see the light shining through because the fiberglass is quite thin. So everywhere you can see that, that means that there's only a very, very thin layer left because we've ground away from the outside in. And in fact here along the rub rail you can actually see a hole here, so we've gone all the way through the laminate. So from the inside we'll lay a couple of layers that will add another 2 to 3 millimeters of thickness to the inside, and that'll then give us something to work against when we grind from the outside in. And then obviously once that's feathered back properly, we can lay layers of laminate back to build up the thickness this way. So we're building up the thickness inside to allow us something to work against from the outside. That's why we can't sort of work on this any further until we've addressed the issues with the inside, which is what we're working on now. So hopefully that will make sense and you can sort of visualize what's happening now.